Okay, we are live. Welcome to meeting number 1 of the Haliburton County Council Rail Trail Round Table Discussion. The date today is September 10th, 2020. I'll start with a roll call. Warden Liz Danielson.
Here.
Councillor Dave Burton.
Present.
Councillor Andrea Roberts.
Here.
And Councillor Carol Moffat.
I'm here, thank you.
And in the council chambers, we have Amanda Vertanen, Director of Tourism, Michelle Moore, Deputy Clerk, and myself, Craig Douglas, Director of Public Works. First and foremost, I'd like, can we get a nomination on the floor for chairperson for this roundtable? Andrea, our Councillor Roberts?
Yes, thank you. If I may, I'd like to nominate Carol Moffat, if she'll accept, to chair this roundtable.
I will accept that.
I would like to second.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. So,
all in favor, Craig?
Thank you. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Councillor Moffat?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Just a couple of notes that in yesterday's Zoom meetings and today, I seem to be having a little bit of internet challenges. So even just before we got on here, everybody kind of went fuzzy a bit. So if I just know that I'm experiencing some internet instability today. Somebody's put their hand up. Hello.
Yeah, Carol, we can really not hear you. Oh, there you are.
Bye.
Carol, you were frozen.
I was frozen. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the agenda. Liz and Dave, thank you. I guess we don't have resolutions written out, so I guess I would just call all in favor for the adoption of the agenda as moved.
Yeah.
I see hands. Thank you very much. We'll get ourselves organized. This is only our first formal meeting. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest regarding the trail?
Carol, might I suggest, although it wouldn't be probably the best situation, but if you turn off your video, you'll run more smoothly.
I just want to I'm back again.
Suggestion: if you turn off your video, you were frozen again.
How about that?
Okay.
Is that better?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. So Liz, my question was, do you think we should formally adopt the notes from the previous meeting? Because I was going to go over them just for the record.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. And just one more note, just for the record as well, that everybody knows that I have written to Brent in Minden Hills and asked if they wanted to, or if he would like to sit in on the committee, so that we've got someone from all 4 municipalities. They're a stakeholder, so hopefully they'll buy in to the group.
Yeah, and that's great. Thank you for that. So then I will ask for, well, I guess we should just go over the notes first. Just going from the notes that Michelle typed last time, that the members agreed. Well, we decided that we were talking about updating the plan, the master plan and its objectives and goals. We decided that, the county would, as it's the owner of the trail, would be the one who makes the decisions about all of its assets and amenities, whatever they might be now or in the future, in terms of width, vegetation, user groups, promotion, signage, and etc. We talked about how we would go forward with reviewing the master plan and start with the existing objectives. There was a number of questions that came up that we discussed about. They included things like, I'll just get my notes here. Do we recreate a committee? Does the speed limit need to be changed? Definition of multi-use, economic cases, motorized vehicles, safety issues, purpose, just a variety of things that were just about the general overall feeling of the trail, just a general check-in, heritage considerations, promotional environment areas, community zones, and that kind of thing. The group further discussed the trail width and usage, agreed that it should remain 13 feet wide and that brushing along the trail take environmental considerations into account. We also discussed safety and ensuring signage was clearly visible along all aspects of the trail, and that definitely there's a need, obviously, for regular trail maintenance. We did talk about the Friends of the Rail Trail study that's being done, and agreed that it would be received for information to incorporate into the discussions for future planning initiatives. Although this wasn't issue, the Howland Junction Bridge is not specifically rail trail overall management. It was raised as an issue, and so we did review that, and that the upgrade of the pickets, while it may not have been the most heritage related option, would be compliant with the Canadian Highway and Bridge design, and that cost would be $7,000. So we did talk quite a bit about that. Something that I attached when I sent out from my notes, which didn't appear attached to these notes, was and I'm going to hold it up. I'm going to try video again just so I can see what I'm doing. I had done this chart, did everybody see that chart? Because
Yes.
it didn't get attached to the minutes. So I didn't know if that was going to be incorporated into what we do here. So that's generally how far we got the first meeting. It was very preliminary, and but we do have a set of notes around that. So I would ask for, is there any discussion on that? Did I miss anything about that? Andrea?
It certainly seems to capture what we initially just discussed, and I think it's great that we're going forward in a more formal setting now and moving forward. But no, I don't see anything.
Sorry, I'm gonna stop my video again.
Yeah, okay. I don't think you left anything out.
Okay, thank you. Liz, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think the chart would also be a good tool for us to work from. I know that we talked today primarily about going through the objectives, but I think the chart will also help us through the process, and you may want to add to it or take from it.
Yeah, and I see your hand, Dave. Does somebody have? Who's talking in the background? I can hear a man talking in somebody's background.
I will mute.
Oh, it's Steve. I recognize the voice. That's okay. Okay, so the chart, then we can add the chart to the minutes or the notes from the first meeting, if that will make them a little more complete. So I had sent out a note earlier that this is a big project, and I think we've agreed we're gonna sort of take it chunk by chunk, bite by bite. So we do have some documents that are taken directly, or some items taken directly from the existing master plan. And I was thinking that today, again, just to continue to refine where we're going, that we could have a look at the goal, the objectives, the guiding principles. And I wanted to ask if everyone was okay if we divided it into categories of, is it still relevant? Have we achieved this or not? And then is there further work to do? And I think under the third column, there'll be a constant series of check marks, because I think there's always work to be done. Would that be okay as a plan of attack for this?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, good. All right. So on the pieces of paper, the documents that were attached, item number 6 is the 2004 master plan goal. I mean, 2004 is an awful long time ago. And there is some suggested changes there to plan for the orderly development, maintenance, use and financing of the Haliburton County Rail line. I think that should say Rail Trail because that's what we call it.
Excuse me. Sorry,
yep.
Carol, don't mean to interrupt, but you went really fast there. So just to our agenda, we're not going through item number 4, review of 2004 master plan goal.
That's what we're doing right now.
Okay, sorry, you said that really quick and said something about 6 and I just went, oh, item 6 on the 2000.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
one.
That was fast. Yes, got it.
Yeah, you know what? I speak quickly. I assume you guys are all used to that.
Sorry.
So there's a couple of suggested changes there that I'm going to assume, Craig, you made those.
That's correct.
And as it reads now, does that make sense for an overarching goal? Considering that anything we decide, we're just providing ourselves a framework. It can be changed. It's going to end up at county council eventually anyway, and there could be some other public input at some time. So the suggested change is to take out the Kinmount / Haliburton part in both sections and the trails and tours part. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so that's okay. So then the next item, which is the master plan objectives, this will could take a little bit of time. And if we don't get through it today, as I did mention, I do have a bit of a time limit today, which with my apologies, just something had come up. So I'm looking at my clock and it's 1:13. So I have from now about an hour to give for this meeting. So I hope that's open as we can. So in terms of the first objective of master plan, and remember, this is like the big master plan, to define and establish design criteria, standards, and operational and a maintenance line doesn't make any sense for the use signature trail system. With the grammar correction.
Frozen again, Carol.
I'm back again.
Yeah, video off, I think works great.
Can you please turn off video again? Yes, Amanda, I can do that. Okay. It's mental telepathy. Okay, sorry. So is that overarching goal number 1, that objective, is that still relevant to what it is the trail needs to be for our purposes? Liz?
I think it is. And I think that we've got some work to do there and maybe some change in thinking about how that's done. But yeah, it's as an objective, it's still absolutely relevant. Mm-hmm.
And so I think you answered the next question, have we achieved it? I'm not sure that we have achieved what that says.
No, I don't think.
And so that means, yes, there's work to do. So what I'm thinking in terms of trying to craft the go forward plan is, if we know there's work to be done, then we can break those pieces apart and further, not today, but further define what that work might be. To identify, sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, just the grammatics of that, or grammar of that. Just I think you take out the standards and operational, take out the and just operational maintenance guidelines. Is that correct? Like we just need to, that doesn't read well.
I think it's got to be operational and maintenance.
Well, when I'm reading that sentence right now, I'm stumbling over the word standards and operational.
So
and
Carol already took out one and, so it would be
okay.
Standards, comma, operational and maintenance guidelines. The second A.
Okay. As long as it's grammatically correct. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes much more sense. Okay, number 2, to identify and address the needs of all intended trail users. I would suggest that is still extremely relevant.
Agreed.
Yep.
Have we achieved it?
No.
Is there work to be done? Yes. I hope they're not all no's. To promote opportunities for tourism and ecotourism development in the county of Haliburton. I would say ecotourism now is just a standard part of tourism. I mean, when this was done, ecotourism was the new big thing in tourism. So
Yeah.
I'd like to suggest that we can just leave it as tourism, take out and ecotourism.
Agree.
Is that still relevant? Feel free to call out.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Have we achieved it?
I think
I
we
would
can do a
s-
better job as the tourism rep.
Yes.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, and so that means there's work to be done. To promote economically, environmentally, and socially sustainable trail design, construction, and use. Is that relevant?
Yes.
I can tell where this is going. Have we achieved that? I would say we have not achieved that. I mean, I think we've made great strides there in terms of some of the work that's been done, but I think we all fully acknowledge there's an awful lot more work to be done. The work to be done in achieving any number of these things is tied directly to finances, right? So if we don't have the money for it, we can't do it. And so that's where we get down to the other part about partnerships is I think we can do a better job of, working with other groups. I mean, we did some work with the ATV Association who provided some money for granular. But I think there's some other discussions to be held there. So there's
And Carol, if I may, there's nothing wrong with if we come to like all these objectives should always be ongoing. They're fluid. And I think it's great that we're looking at them, but it's not there's nothing to be when you say, is there still work to do? There's nothing wrong with saying yes, but I also agree with your comments and that look how far we've come, because I think there's a big difference between 2020 and 2004 when this was adopted in terms of use. So yeah, they're ongoing.
and that's why the chart
Yes.
the notes that I took from our first meeting actually does address the next set of questions for a lot of this, but I'm hoping that we will be able to drill down with more specifics to add to this chart because of today's conversation so that we can, just really get ourselves pointed in the right direction. To protect and interpret both the natural and historical resources adjacent to the trail. I'd say that's a yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Liz?
I'm just wondering about the word adjacent to the trail. I mean, I guess it's semantics, but I was sort of thinking that form part of the trail. It's part of the whole trail atmosphere. So adjacent to, maybe I'm just nitpicking.
No, you know what? I think that's a good point because adjacent could be the farm up the hill, and we're not going to get involved in Godfrey's farm. So it might be better to say, related to or that form part of.
I like that form part of.
Dave?
I just wonder about interpret, Carol. Is there another word we could have in there? Just that seems a bit confusing to me.
Yeah, and that goes back, I think, Dave, to the idea that one of the great visions, and we even applied for money for it and we didn't get it, was to create interpretive signage for the trail that would tell the history of the rail bed itself, of the train in Haliburton and early settlers and that kind of thing. So that's what it means by interpret is to, and then be able to, we have a whole file of species that are along the trail, and we have talked historically about, again, these great plans to have signage that will tell us the story of the cardinal flower and the species of butterfly and whatever's found there, so that people are using it more as a recreational and educational trail as opposed to getting from A to B. So unless that is not what you want to see here, then I would suggest it needs to stay based on those conversations.
I was just wondering about maybe identify, but I could be.
Chair Moffat.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wonder, I kind of agree with Dave on the word interpret, and I wonder if it is removed from there, if it's sort of encapsulated in the third point about promoting the sort of tourism opportunities, because I wonder if the interpret sort of falls within that, but I don't know if that's...
It does, but we would have to make sure that we say that. So I can tell you from my heritage studies that that word makes complete sense to me from a heritage perspective. But it's not, we don't want to have documents that have language that the average person maybe doesn't understand or understand why it's there. So Liz?
I think maybe what Dave suggested in identify, to protect and identify, goes along with, making sure that there's a fulsome education and information about what's there on the trail. Interpret suggests that we're trying to, I don't know, I kind of like identify. I'd like to keep this item separate as opposed to taking it out and adding it to the tourism point.
I think Amanda wants to make sure that interpret is understood to be contained within tourism. And we would just need to remember that interpretation is part of tourism. It's also part of capital projects. So I'm not sure where you want to land on this, because we have divergent opinions on it. So identify, you can identify something and not do anything with it. Interpret in this context is a verb.
Yeah.
So it means to, like, if you go to the log chute and there's the information kiosk, that's interpretation. That's in heritage work. That's what that means, is interpretation is when you have a guide who takes you on a hike, that person's called an interpreter.
Right.
So.
Okay, then
So
I'm good with leaving it.
I guess my question would be, would the general public understand that?
Well, that was my comment. So, I mean, we could, if you were going to change it to identify would go before protect, because before you're going to protect something, you have to identify it. But you can also identify something in a file folder. So
Yeah.
interpretation to me is the action word for us to remind ourselves that we've been talking for years about putting up signs that say, this is where the Howland turntable was, and we had this great train history, and get all Leopolda's work and that kind of thing, and get it up there for people to read and know and understand. That's interpretation.
So on that note, Carol, maybe we need all three words. Maybe we need the sentence to read: to identify, protect, and interpret both the natural and historic resources. And then whether we change the word adjacent or put related to the rail trail or to the trail, to have all three words to identify,
All three
protect,
would work. And Liz said she would prefer if it says the resources that form part
yes,
of the rail trail.
yeah, I think that all three to add.
That sounds
Identify is supposed to remove anything, because all three should be objectives.
Okay, good suggestion. Everybody okay with that? Dave's not getting his way, but Dave, you do make a good point, is we need to make sure that, when's the last time any of us really had a good look at this? So we need to make sure that we spend more time explaining and understanding what this document means for us and how it moves us forward. So let's just make sure that we understand the interpret part. And I have to say, I know Mr. March is in the room. If Craig or Amanda put their hand up, I'd be hard pressed to see them. The eye in the sky is really, it's like that TV show. Like, it's really hard to see you guys.
May I suggest, Madam Chair, that they can just step in any chance, any reason they may have, please.
I agree. This is not a council meeting, and so I'm not going to get all huffy if someone doesn't put their hand up.
Good.
To promote education for all trail users regarding trail etiquette. Oh,
Carol, sorry, Craig here, going to butt in.
Yep.
Can you just read out what preferred for, is it number five?
The preference for
version.
number 5 is to identify, protect, and interpret both the natural and historical resources that form part of the trail.
Great, thanks.
See, and with that, with the identification part in there in that sentence, that's a sentence that you put in a funding application. To promote education for all trail users regarding trail etiquette. Do you think we need to keep working on that?
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so I'm going to put SO means sort of. To recommend and provide direction for trail implementation and management. Implementation seems an odd word for me.
Trail implementation.
It's been implemented. It needs to be maintained, sustained, retained. I think there's a different word there, isn't there? To recommend and provide direction.
For trail management.
Do we want to say development and management?
Yeah, sure.
Or actually management becomes management, you'd manage it and then develop what you've managed. So it would be management and development.
And develop, yeah.
But
Because we do want to keep developing it.
yes,
In accordance with the things we've just agreed on previously.
and just to be clear too, to recommend and provide direction to whom? Is it staff? Is that what we're providing direction to staff?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or to provide direction to, because there's a lot of users and these are objectives overall for the whole plan. So who are we providing direction to? Not really sure, not what number 7 is saying.
Well, I mean, it would be, so it's the county's asset, it's the county's plan, and county council has taken sort of leadership on the trail. So it would be,
Yes,
but the council wouldn't provide direction to itself. Would it be, Craig, would it be operational direction? Or it's more than that? To recommend to provide direction.
It's more than that.
This
for
one I
trail
feel
management
kind
and development. Go ahead. Amanda, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I feel like this one almost ties in a little bit to number 9 if you read number 9. So I think
Mhm.
maybe there could be a hybrid. Unless I'm
agree.
wrong.
no, I agree.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it could be, so could that be to number, so if we do mix them or blend them together, to recommend an operational management and development strategy to county council. I don't know, like, I'm not sure where it's gonna live. First of all, can I ask if there's concurrence with blending 7 with 9? Could we put a line through 7?
Yes.
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 So let's come back to that. To identify funding, fundraising, and sponsorship opportunities. Oh. Should that include partnerships? Or is that
Yeah.
inherent?
Nothing should be inherent. It should be spelled out. We shouldn't
Well,
assume anything.
No, you're right. And I always say, if we were vaporized by aliens tomorrow, would the next set of people reading this understand what we meant to say?
Yeah,
would
to just
support
add
vaporization.
and partnership.
And partnership. Did you get that, Craig? Who's taking the notes down over there?
Michelle
Michelle is.
is there.
Maybe-
Actually, I think we're all making notes.
Yeah, but for clarity, Michelle Moore is our secretary.
So,
Correct.
so it would be funding, fundraising, partnership, and sponsorship opportunities. Yes?
That's what
Yep.
we're saying. And
Okay.
so keeping in mind that this plan was written 400 years ago, there was a different view then, and there's been a lot of contentious conversation around this. And as part of that, including the community consultation of 2010, I think it was, while I think these are still relevant, is it setting the wrong tone, or is it retaining the right tone? I mean, the funding opportunities come either through the county, either from the county coffers or through funding opportunities. Fundraising, I don't know who's going to raise money. Like, we're not going to start a GoFundMe page, but we can apply for funding. Or do you just leave it because it's all encompassing? Andrea?
Thank you. I think you leave it. And funding, no, it's not just, it's from county council identifying and putting funds aside for that, but it's also money from the ATV or Snowmobile Club, or who
Right.
knows, other grants. So who knows what other opportunities. And one thing that I think actually could be missing and we haven't done anything about is fundraising. I remember going to a conference several years ago, Ontario East Municipal Conference, where this trail had been like 50% that fundraised from a group of I know we have a Friends of the Rail Trail, but it was a group like that loved the trail, and they did a fundraising campaign and went like, here's our $50,000 if the county or the township matched that, and they were able to do all kinds of huge improvements. So I think fundraising actually could be a way. You said we're not going to do GoFundMe, but we should keep our eyes or ears or whatever, our opportunities open for fundraising actually.
So would fundraising be part of funding? Can we just say funding and partnership opportunities? Because sponsorship could be part of partnership. Or it doesn't matter to me. We can either say all the words or make some assumptions about what it means.
I kind of like the keeping it simple to identify funding and partnership opportunities, because I think sponsorship does fit into partnership. We just have to make sure that if we have partners, that they all have equal opportunities for input.
Well, you got to remember that we can change this, and then the work where we're going to roll up our sleeves is to circle back at a later meeting and say, okay, what do you mean by funding and partnership opportunities? Let's start naming them, because we can't get somewhere if we don't map out a plan. But this is just giving us the overarching. So
Yep.
If we're okay with that, Dave, go ahead.
I imagine, Carol, in the day, that was probably geared or pointed to trails and tours, I would think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yep. Because I know where I was in 2004, and thank you, Dave. You're absolutely right. Yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, then we're back to 9, which we're going to blend with 7. So considering exactly what Dave just said, there was a different setup then, and it was trails and tours, and this was sort of the burgeoning of a new day. So now that the county tourism has gone back to the county since those days, trails and tours is no longer in existence, and the county has taken back, or I guess taken back the rail trail. And I think, I'm not sure if in 2004 there was a committee, but I know there has been a committee for a long time. So
could I just interrupt for just a second?
Yeah, please do.
Whoever's got a bing bong, could it be turned off? Because I keep thinking there's somebody at my door.
That's me. Sorry. That's my text notification. And I have to say, it bing bonged the first time, and what I did is looked out the window to see who was in the driveway. My own phone. My apologies. Okay, so we're back to struggling with who's giving recommendations to whom. So this is to recommend. The first one is to recommend and provide direction for trail implementation. Well, we're past that, and management. And the second one is to recommend an operational and management strategy. Is that where you want to say for the continued development of the asset or of the trail?
Who's recommending to who? Because this assumes that there's a trail committee, and we haven't talked about whether we want to do that or not. And I mean, to me, it's county council making the recommendations, but that's open for discussion.
To recommend operational and management strategies for the continued development of the trail. I'm still back to that, because if it's our trail and our plan and we're the ones making the decisions, you wouldn't necessarily spell out who, would you? Andrea.
So we have a cultural resource plan, and the very first objective of the plan is create a cultural resource committee to follow the plan. So I'm just for a little bit of history when this was happening back then, and then was there is it say somewhere else, and I have read the plan, but I'm trying to remember that a committee must be formed. It doesn't say who's on it. So this round table could end up being the Rail Trail Committee. If you don't mind sharing some history, there was a committee, then it dissolved, then it just went to the county. I know you said that earlier, but
yeah, there was it was a funny time.
Okay, yeah, I remember reading the papers.
There was I was part of, when I was doing the county's tourism marketing through the Chamber of Commerce, there was and Trails and Tours was created, and there was a group called, and I mentioned this at our last meeting, TORAG, the Trails and Tours Off-Road Advisory Group.
Oh.
And that was the first attempt to get motorized users to stop throwing stones at each other and get along. Everybody has to, but it wasn't just for the rail trail. It was in the county and trying to develop partnerships and communication channels and that kind of thing. The Rail Trail Committee was in place for a long, long time. It was the same issues that are discussed today were discussed then. Some of the same people that are still active in using the rail trail, different groups. There's people who are in different groups today that are using the trail and advocating for various uses that were at the table then. So part of me thinks that not a lot has changed, even though a lot has. So whether or not we end up with a committee again, we don't know that. Maybe do we just saw it off to say to recommend operational management strategies to the appropriate body?
I wonder if I could interject for a moment with a thought.
Yes, please do.
Feel free to shoot me down. But I feel because of point number 1, like item 7.1, where we say to define and establish, and it kind of encompasses everything now, that maybe there isn't even a need for 9, but I could be entirely wrong. But I feel like number 1 is kind of saying what we're looking to say again in number 9.
Well, thank God you weighed in. I think you're right.
Look up.
Carol, that was my point as well. I just wonder if it even has to be in there.
I think you're right. I think if we do go back to number 1, it says it right there. We don't have to say who. If we want to create a who, we'll create a who.
Exactly.
Okay.
Except for the word management is not in number 1. And I do think it's important that we include that word.
Yeah.
Yes, we could so.
Oh, take management strategy up to the top.
Yep.
Okay, so it could be, so that could be reworked to say, to define and establish criteria related to standards, operations, maintenance, and management of a multi-use signature trail system.
Yep.
And one other point I wanted to make that I didn't want to interject at the time, but looking at 7.6 again, where it says to promote education for all, I'm wondering if we could just change that potentially, respectfully, to educate trail users regarding trail etiquette.
Right, because we're not promoting the education through another body. We are doing it, to educate. You are right.
Oh, and then take out the word for,
Yeah.
to educate all trail users.
And I think we could even take out the all and just say to educate trail users.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good point because back in the day, we were trying to make it, the attempt was to trying to make it a group. And so it had to say all because we were trying to draw everybody into the group. And now I think we're way past that. I mean, there are still disputes and discomfort, but we no longer have to say all as if it was us and them. It's everybody now. So that makes sense to me. Can you, Craig and Amanda, can you confirm that with Michelle that she's captured that for us, even though we all have notes?
If you can read number 1.
So I had suggested to define and establish criteria related to design, standards, operations, maintenance, and management. And we can circle back on this once we see it in a full sentence. This is not a done deal.
Yeah.
Once we see how this lays out in the new look, we can have another go at it. Like we said, there's absolutely no rush here. Anything else for the overall objectives? And don't forget, as we go through the other parts, we can pop back to the objectives if they suddenly don't make sense. Nothing is written in stone at all here. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we'll move on to the guiding principles. And the first section is design criteria and standards. Okay, so right off the bat, if the if the next sections are going to be reflective of number 1, then we're going to need to have a section that outlines criteria related to design, and standards, design and standards is together here, and operations and maintenance and management. So we'd have to have a section for each of those in order for there to be a consistent flow in charts. Anyway, we'll carry on for now.
I was
Go ahead.
going to suggest, and I think that, Carol, that makes sense, or sorry, Chair Moffat, to be formal. But I'm wondering if maybe just in light of time, everyone's time, rather than going through like bullet by bullet, maybe Craig and I should take a look at that section 8 and maybe propose something for our next meeting so that we can just have it aligned. I bet that's just.
Yeah, so if we were to do that, so just bear with me here, and unless everybody fully understood what I meant. So the next section we're going to look at is, 8A, design criteria and standards, which was noted in as number 1 under the objectives. And I only have the pieces of paper that were sent as part of the agenda. I could access the whole plan, but I'm not going to do that with an eye to the time. So that means that what Craig and Amanda would have to work on is the criteria in relation to operations, maintenance, and management, because all 5 of those live in number 1 of the objectives. So now nesting within that has to be those principles of each of those sections, which we don't have in front of us today. Andrea?
Well, just to ask Craig, if I could, in the details of the master plan, though, there is design criteria, there is the minimum maintenance, there is the width of the trail. So maybe I just hear from Craig, like, I think, not to say that those things could be changed or whatnot, but when you start getting into the middle of the plan, I'm trying to see what page it's on, it doesn't matter. So Craig, is there not design criteria currently?
Yeah, there's the design criteria are in there. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what Amanda is suggesting. The master plan guiding principles are generally broken down into design criteria and standards, trail users, and partnerships. They relate back to the master plan objectives. But for example, item 8A, number 1, doesn't necessarily, and I don't know that's going to align perfectly with all the items in our master plan objectives.
Yeah, and Craig, you're right, and that's what I'm suggesting. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I see the world as a series of nesting dolls. And so, if the number 1 objective is to define and establish criteria related to design, standards, operations, maintenance, and management, if I was reading this, then I want to find somewhere in this document, what are the operational goals? So we need a section for operations, maintenance, and management to provide that more refined direction for the trail's continuation. Right, Liz?
I'm hearing.
I'm just not sure about turning it, well, I guess we'll have an opportunity to talk about it. I'm just not sure about turning it back over to, say, Craig to write out design standards when there are some issues about the standards that are being used at the present time, or the practices. And I think that we need to talk about that at some point in time and land somewhere that we all agree on.
So the design standards are actually item number 8A, so you're right. And we will go through those just now. And so I guess what I'm asking is if we just back up a bit. You don't want to have a document that says that the objective of the plan is to, break number 7.1 out. We don't want to say that our objective is to, one of the objectives is, or the main one is to define and establish criteria around operations and then not be able to find it anywhere in the document. So that's what they need to create is they need to have a stab at the new pieces, which is operations, maintenance, and management. The language around those pieces may already live in the document, but they would need to be pulled back out. So 8 should then have A, B, C, D, and E. if I'm understanding the nesting doll theory correctly.
I don't disagree with you.
Oh, ye, she of the procedural bylaw, nitpicky lady. So does that make sense, or is that like reinventing the wheel here? What do you think? It's hard to look at it when we only have the two pieces that were provided for the agenda, and we don't have the entire document in front of us.
Oh, yeah, that's why I actually do, because that's why I had set up this design differently. But it's also very lengthy and wordy, and it's hard to, I think it's great that we're reviewing the objectives and making sure that they're current and relevant to today, but maybe we don't need to get too far into the weeds.
Okay, so what do you think about circling back with some operational maintenance and management criteria broken out for review next time? Because we don't have, I mean,
Sure.
they're in the document somewhere. We don't have them.
Yes, exactly.
They also don't appear to form part of item 8.
Carol, if I may?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I do feel that, most of what's in here has been, I'm going to say, accomplished. And I just wonder if this is an opportunity for us to rewrite, and I agree with what you're suggesting. Like, I think this whole thing could be cleaned right up and fresh.
And we still we would need to review what those guiding principles would be under each of those categories.
Yes.
So I'm going to break this conversation into two pieces. And the first one is I'm looking for a yes or no about letting Craig and or Amanda have a stab at guiding principles in relation to operations, maintenance, and management as per 7.1. And we would look at that next time.
Mm-hmm.
And today, I mean, the item 8A is the first point of the objectives, which is the design criteria for design and standards. And that's what Liz wants to look at. And it's actually the very next thing on the piece of paper. So we can do that right now. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So Craig, do you have enough to take away and achieve miracles with from that?
Miracles, that might be a bit much, but my understanding, so each one of the objectives will have a number of guiding principles related specifically to that objective.
Yeah, and they only have to be some. Because again, if you think of flow charts, nesting dolls, probably a poor example, then we can refine each of them from there as we go forward. Okay. And we don't want to make it too pinpoint, because it's got to go out. I mean, county council's got to look at it, and other folks, and see if we're headed in the right direction. So if having said that, Craig, you guys are okay for that?
Okay, just for clarity, so item 7.1 will develop some guiding principles, but we'll go through, are we to go through items, all the other objectives as well, and try and relate guiding principles to them?
I don't know.
Ahead.
I think that's too far ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really, I think you're just looking for some guiding principles for operations, maintenance, and management, because those three things are in our item number 1 under item 7 to be added to these major guiding principles, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the environment.
Well, I think, Dave, we're gonna leave the environment for later. We're just gonna tackle 7.1.
Okay.
So if we flesh out section 8 based on what the objectives are of 7.1, we can handle the rest going forward.
Okay.
Liz?
I think that we need to keep in mind too, when we're talking about, say, particularly maintenance of the trail, that we have to keep in mind that we're dealing with different users. I was going to say multi-use, but at some point we need to talk about the definition of multi-use. but we are looking at different types of users, and you know, I know that one type of user is horrified by and thinks that we're maintaining it like a road, and it's not a road. But somewhere we need to find a midpoint that works for everybody.
Yeah, we do, and I think. Sorry, I just have to do a little something here. I think we need to remember that the guiding principles are things like safety. Like a guiding principle for maintenance is safety, you know, annual investment, those kinds of things. So, and then from those then would come more refined operational things where at some point where we'll say, well, we need money for that, and we need money for that, and we need a partner for that. So this is like a flow chart of refinement to get to action items. These are just guiding principles at this point. Okay, so let's take with an eye to the time. Let's tackle the 8A, and we may break it out, or we may not agree on this at all. But it starts with provide ecologically sensitive trail design and management strategies. Is that still relevant?
Yes.
Have we achieved it? No.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to put yes for needs more work. Provide a range of trail experiences. I don't believe it's our job to provide. I think it's our job to provide. We're providing an asset on which trail experiences can occur, but you know, that's when we get into the sort of push me pull you of different users and ideas. And so I'm not sure that language works, because it's not our job to provide them. You know, Yours Outdoors could provide a trail experience. Fort provides trail experiences. It's not our job to provide them. So what do you see that looking like? Could it be ensure, or do we want to leave that, take it out, or rework it? I think we don't want to leave it, but
I would suggest take it out.
I agree. I don't think that it's under design criteria and standards. It doesn't, that's different.
I agree.
Well, so you know what, Andrea, I think the next one falls into the same category. Not that we want to dismiss that, but I don't think it belongs under design criteria.
Yes, like, yeah, that's what I'm saying when you look at where it is, because those are more in the objectives of promoting tourism that would be trail experiences or different things. But this says design criteria and standards should be like a minimum maintenance standard and a minimum design standard and a minimum, you know, maximum width or minimum width, like that. I'm talking about the hardscape or whatever, the actual trail. So,
well, you know, based on that, then number 2, number 3, number 4,
yeah,
and even part of number 5, it's not that we want to dismiss them; they just don't belong in this section. I think you're
I
right.
don't mind 5. I don't mind 5 there because, well, that is promoting a high standard of trail, right? Promoting. No, we're not promoting it.
Okay, but we could say under design criteria, you could say something about, you know, work toward or endeavor to achieve a high standard of trail.
Yeah, no, yeah.
This endeavor to achieve a high standard of a trail that somehow, and this is not the wording I would use, but that offers a facility that meets the needs of all users. You know, somehow work it into, because that would minimize conflicts. We want to make sure that we've got a high quality trail and high standard. So I can see that a couple more of these can come out, because they really, as Andrea said, they're not related to design.
So for instance, in number 4, if we just take out the word experience, you could still leave it in, provide a high quality multi-use trail. That is part of design and criteria, design and a standard.
Yep.
The next point
But
covers
not
it,
experience.
but the next point covers as well.
Yeah, exactly.
They say the same thing.
So take out 4.
No, actually, I'd leave 4 and I'd take
I'll
out
take out 5. Okay.
5.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
because then nesting inside the words high quality is where you would talk about the standard.
Yeah.
And the standard is the operational aspect that achieves that at that point.
So what do we do about number 3? Do we take it out?
I crossed it out, but
I did as well.
And Liz, I wonder if again, nested inside high quality would be the educational and maintenance standards that would reduce or minimize conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suggest that item number 8 might help
Yeah,
yes.
cover off number 3. And what was the other?
No,
Minimize?
that's
And
not
6.
sufficient, though. It wouldn't do it completely. Like there's safety issues, and then there's a high standard that meets the expectations of different users. They're different things.
Yeah. Okay, considering that we're still in design and standards, what are our overarching guiding principles? She said to herself out loud. Could we add? Okay, do we think it's our job to minimize conflict? Yes, no.
I think it's our job to develop a trail that reduces opportunities for conflicts.
Okay, then could we say consider issues of safety and conflict? No, that's the wrong way to say it for all potential users.
I don't mind 6 because I think that does go back to part of the design. And for instance, like if you have like slow down crossings ahead or proper stop signs, or to minimize the conflict at road, driveway, and trail crossings is part of design.
So number 6 and number 3 are kind of duplicate each other in a certain way.
Well, one's about design and one's about users. So
yeah,
in this section, it has to be number 6.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, Carol, that's where your chart would help us out to itemize those.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's where, based on the chart, I was going with, what conflict, why conflict, who conflict, and then we can work our way through that, and then that would maybe provide some, identify the challenges, what are the opportunities and the options, and then the decided outcome. So.
Just a question. Does the word conflict have to even be in there?
Yes, it does. I think it does.
I thought we were past that.
Well, unfortunately, we're not.
Yeah, like there's still there's still some challenges on the trail in terms of uses. I do question whether it's our job to act as the traffic cops, and if we can keep the idea of conflict but put it somewhere else. Maybe it's is it under operational or management?
I was just thinking that exact same thing, that I would like to keep. We do need to recognize and minimize whatever conflicts there are, but you're right, this isn't the right place for it. I think we need to take it out of this section, but it's got to live somewhere. Under
I think it lives in management.
Yeah.
Can I just, Carol?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just go back to Craig. So Craig had pointed out the number 8, because when I'm talking about conflict, I'm not talking about two people fighting. I'm talking about, you could, in terms of road engineering language, so that where.
Trail, it's a trail, Andrea. Don't say.
Well, yes, no, but Craig is road, yes. So, but to use his terminology, would 8 suffice? Because when I'm talking about conflict, like I say, it's not two people. It's the convergence of where a trail meets a driveway. Is that physically engineered, designed safe? Like in some rail trails, they have gates, that you have to kind of maneuver around, etc. So, Craig, do you think 8 is sufficient to cover and then take out 6?
that was my initial thought. When we say conflict, like you, Andrea, I was thinking design it so that to reduce conflict. In other words, whether it's a road, cars and bikes, or whether it's the rail trail, ATVs or snowmobiles or whatnot, conflicting with each other, not because you're mad at anybody or
Exactly.
upset. It's just inherent in the systemic safety as opposed to
Yes.
personalities or whatever.
But if you, that's what I'm talking about. So if it's like how you design a road, you design a trail so that everybody's merging in. And so do you think 8 covers it and we can take 6 out?
I still think they're different things.
I do too.
Liz, go
Two
ahead.
different types of conflict.
See, number 6 is speaking to what Craig is mentioning, that it's a design thing, and that's in terms, Andrew, you just used the word merge, and that's exactly one of the options is, signage and education and it's physical on the ground infrastructure, whereas
Yes.
number 8 is safety, which is
Okay.
which is speed,
Yes.
respect, education. So I think number 6, within the context of Craig's job, number 6 makes perfect sense, as long as that's what we understand it to be, that we're talking about minimizing conflict of infrastructure design and
Yes.
users.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
That was my point. Yeah, good. Okay.
Liz?
I completely agree with how you're approaching those 2 points. I just want to continue to say that I think we all know that there is a different kind of conflict that results from how we manage and maintain the trail. And it's not 2 people fighting together necessarily, but different users not agreeing on how it's designed or managed for their individual group purpose. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. We need to consider that at some point, someplace as well. And it fits into design criteria to some extent.
I mean, I don't disagree. And so I wondered, I had jotted down here related to number 8. And this might be watering it down too much, but could we change that to have regard for issues of safety for and conflict among users?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Say that again.
Have regard's a bit wishy-washy, to be honest. Have regard, I just took it from, that's what number 9 says. Have regard for issues of safety for and conflict among users.
Sure.
That works for me, and I think that would a point
Yeah,
like
that's
that kind of
capturing.
covers both sides of the issue.
And I'm fine.
Remember, we're going to see this in writing and tear it apart again.
Hopefully not too much. We said that.
Yeah, that's right. Whose idea was that? Okay, I don't understand this. Reflect intrinsic landscape character based on heritage themes such as natural landscape, cultural heritage, etc. There's got to be an easier way to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, or maintain intrinsic landscape character based on
Based on heritage, based on heritage themes of what, by whom, and for whom.
Well, and heritage themes could be different things. It could be natural heritage, or it could be the history of the rail trail.
I just have a vision of the county conjurers in costumes. That's not what this means. What did you say, Liz, for the first word? Reflect, I don't think is right.
Consider the natural landscape or the landscape character based on natural and historic themes.
I would say just take out the based on heritage themes such as, because we've just been provided 2 of them, and it says etc. So etc. and such as is redundant all over again. maintain or have regard for or consider or maintain the intrinsic landscape character such as natural landscape, cultural hair, I don't know, late in the day.
Greg and Amanda are whispering.
Consider
I'm
landscape.
whispering to
Maybe they've
myself,
got a
but-
good, maybe you've got a good sentence for us. Go.
No, we weren't whispering,
Oh, sorry.
unfortunately.
Actually, I think that was me, Andrea.
Oh,
I think it was me.
Consider landscape character, including natural landscape, natural and cultural heritage, maybe?
How about ensure the natural landscape and cultural heritage are considered in all decision making?
wow.
Good.
Somebody get that?
Yeah, ensure the
Like that.
natural landscape and cultural heritage are considered in all decision making? Is that what
Or
you're
it
saying?
could just be, we haven't said in all decision making, I would assume that.
Considered.
Yeah, are considered.
Just stop there.
And there might be some better way to phrase that, but we're getting the idea down.
Yep.
Yes.
Phew. Okay, then number 8 we've agreed on, and then number 9 is have regard for adjacent lands such as environmentally sensitive lands, agricultural lands, and residential areas. What does that mean? Have regard for them. Oh, look, there's a house.
Well, we need to consider the fact that there are homes that are, that are accessed across the trail, and that, whenever we're making any changes or doing any changes in development, that we consider those things.
Okay, then it can be the same language as number 7. Ensure that environmentally sensitive lands, agricultural lands, and residential areas are considered.
I think it's important to include those lands. However you change the sentence doesn't really matter to me, but it is important, as Liz stated, that there are certain sections where, maybe you change the speed limit, I don't know, because it's high residential area, or it's just saying that you're aware of them when you're doing this design and
Well,
your
there have
standards.
been issues in the past with residences, with farmlands,
Yes.
with fencing, a number of issues that we've got to continue.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, yeah, you could even just turn both those sentences around to say ensure consideration of the natural landscape and cultural heritage features, and then number 9 could be ensure consideration of environmentally sensitive lands, agricultural lands, and residential areas. I mean, that's just kind of semantics, but we've got the general idea. So there's a number of things we've taken out. We're going to put number 3 in management. Oh no, conflict. We added that. We're not going to put it in management because it lives here.
that's not the end of that section.
Oh, so it's not.
6
Turn the page. Yep. 10 to 15.
Okay, so 10, enhance, develop, and create signage, defining opportunities along the trail vicinity. Yes.
Along and the vicinity.
No, I don't like and vicinity. It's just along the trail.
Along the trail, period.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, you're right, Andrea. That needs to be signage.
But what if, say, you're driving down on Coshlong Lake Road? Do we not have a responsibility to have a good sign that says the rail trail is right there? Like, it is sort of in the vicinity. It might not be, like, it's a great access point to get on the trail. A lot of people start there. I don't know. Vicinity might mean it's not within the 100-foot strip of the rail trail, but it might mean it's somewhere else. Like, I don't know.
Instead of
Nothing wrong.
enhance, develop, and create, that's like saying, brush your teeth, put on your socks. How about we say, again, ensure appropriate signage and wayfinding opportunities along the trail? that's pretty all encompassing.
Sure, but I meant not just along the trail. We might have opportunity if we want to say, promote the trail more, to have access points on where cars can, or vehicles or people can access the trail, such as Coshland Lake Road or Ritchie Falls Road or something like that. So it isn't just along the rail trail that we may have signage. That's all.
There's no harm in leaving and vicinity in, because we can,
Sure.
and we can refine as we go.
Okay.
Because I think that's a good point, is it's not just, we don't want to be the people that say, oh, well, that opportunity is 2 feet off of our trail. So
So we're not putting a sign up.
So we're saying ensure appropriate signage, wayfinding opportunities along the trail and vicinity.
Again, guiding principles. We're not, the definition, what appropriate is and what the opportunities are and what the vicinity are can be determined in a different layer of nesting dolls.
By saying number 10, I think we can take out number 11.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
I would concur. Consider security and safety of vehicles and equipment at staging areas and destination points.
Is that our job?
No, I think we covered that.
Yeah.
When we've talked about safety in number 9.
Yes.
Do we want to say, in terms of design, do we want to say something about staging areas and parking? Because there are, I mean, the rail trail right at Haliburton, there's a big parking lot there. There's a couple of places where you can park.
Oh, yeah.
So do we want to say something about parking?
Ensure appropriate staging and staging, parking, and destination points.
What's a destination point?
But that's covered down in trail users.
Yeah, sort of.
But I guess I'm thinking about, well, we've got a parking area that's not well signed, I might say. I've driven by it several times trying to find it. And there's a couple of areas along the trail now where you can sit. There's been large stones placed and there's sitting here. Like, there are some specific areas. I don't know that you'd call them staging areas, but you would call them destination points, lookouts. And
could I just ask your pleasure of I think maybe my afternoon just changed. So I'm just going to put myself on mute for a second, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely.
Go ahead.
We will pause.
The first time I heard Carol's little doorbell, I literally went to the door.
Okay, so my my need to be off this call in 2 minutes has just changed. So I'm okay for a little bit longer, if that's okay. Because we're almost through this anyway.
Yes,
So we just keep
yeah.
going in.
I think we need something there on point 12 about, maybe we don't call, I don't know if staging areas is the right word, but we do have a couple parking areas. And in fact, one that's really growing in popularity is at Gould's Crossing Road. And we aren't, we maybe need to provide a little bit more parking. A lot of people are parking there, and there isn't actually a very, it's not designated as a parking spot. So I don't know about security and safety of vehicles. It makes it sound like if somebody's car got broken into, it's our fault because we didn't design something. So I put a question mark on that. And
so can we, so we're looking at something that's around staging areas and parking, but you're right, Andrea. I don't think we want to say that we want to ensure it, because then someone's going to say,
yeah,
you need to pave that parking lot for me.
Well, how about consider?
Have regard for the needs of
Staging.
appropriate staging and parking areas
And destination points.
I don't understand.
How about the word formalize?
No, because that's an action word. That means we have to do something. Having regard for means, oh yeah, we had regard for it, but we didn't put $1,000 into it. It's kind of sneaky language, but my apologies.
I say question mark. I'm not sure.
So have regard for appropriate Staging, parking, and destination points? Staging,
What's a destination? What's a destination point in the context of this? Like, I don't know what it is in this context. A staging
Really
point
nice,
or
the really destination, the really nice wetland south of Ritchie Falls. I don't know.
well, it doesn't fit in with what this was originally about, which was safety and security.
Of vehicles.
The destination points don't fit. So, maybe we need to stick with, have regard for the need for appropriate staging and parking areas.
That's where I'd leave it. I think the destination point fits into the tourism part. And so Amanda, who's left the room, Elvis has left the room, that we need to have consideration for the destination point as part of the tourism development aspect.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Carol, just to put to staging areas or access points, because even when you look at our map, there are access points. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right, because it's not always vehicles.
Yeah, it could it could be have regard for appropriate parking, staging, and access points.
Yeah.
Amanda,
Yes.
under number 12, we've just rewritten that and we've decided that the idea of destination points belong more in tourism than it does in
Design.
Safety. Yes.
in design. So can you just make a note that somewhere in tourism we want to circle back and have a further discussion about destination points.
Noted.
Okay, provide for year-round use.
This is problematic. Provide for year-round use for who? Because year-round use is not there for some users.
For most users.
Yeah. And I've always had a bit of this has always given me pause for thought, because in fact, there probably are a number of users other than snowmobile users who might like to use the trail in the winter, like snowshoers or cross-country skiers might love to use the trail in the wintertime. And, I know that does not fit with the groomers and snow machines, but it is not a year-round facility for everybody.
Do we want to get there though? Or like, are we writing this for what it is, or what it is and what it could be going forward? That's what we want to. I don't want to write ourselves into a corner.
I think to some extent we need to rate it for both, for what it is and what we hope it to be. I mean, we want to see improvements, and that's not what it, if it needs improvements, that's not just maintaining what we've got now.
Well, even the phrase provide for year-round use, there's no qualifiers or quantifiers. It's like eat dinner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely something wrong at that point.
Can we just put a question mark beside that and try and figure out what that, did Craig or Amanda have any brainstorming ideas there about?
In terms of a design criteria or a standard, I'm not sure how that one fits in.
It's a little awkward there. I would agree.
I think it's awkward there too. And I don't think it's necessary, Carol, because well, that's not on the table for our discussion today. Like clearly in the master plan, and we're not reinventing the wheel. Like we are trying to tweak a document, not rewrite it. So I mean, it very clearly states that the trail will be for snowmobiles in the winter. So but I don't think that we need to have 15 bullet points. I think we can simplify here and take it out, because number 8 says consider safety issues for all potential trail users. So
if you look at
that's it.
Number 3 in trail users is actually the same point.
Yeah.
Provide year-round trail access, and I kind of think it sits more with the trail user type.
Okay, so would you agree that it doesn't belong here? It's awkward here.
Yes.
Okay, number 13 comes out. That was easy.
Yep.
14, provide unified character throughout trail system. I don't like this provide, like those are orders. You shall,
Yeah.
And we allocate money annually based on other competing priorities. And we would all love to pour way more money into the rail trail. We just don't have it. But we want to make sure, and I'm again, unified character. I guess that's making sure that the signs are all the same and.
But it could be so many things.
Would you switch the word with encourage?
Encourage who?
Yeah,
Well,
Carol?
Yes, ma'am.
I just think even both 14 and 15 are sort of like meaningless. And I don't mean to be frivolous to whoever wrote this and it was adopted at the time, but we've already talked about the natural heritage and cultural heritage. We've already talked about, so like, what do you mean provide opportunities to interpret a range of scenery? Well, we already talked about that. And I'd really like to see this. I think that simple is better, right? So I would take out 13, 14, and 15. And it doesn't mean that we are not acknowledging them. It means that they are already living in something else. And that's just too wishy-washy language.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Okay.
I think that's a really good point. What do Dave and Liz, what do you think?
No, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. And most of it's covered down in trail users anyway.
Or in points that we've already covered.
Or points we've covered, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You guys agree, Amanda and Craig?
Yes, and I agree too with what Councillor Roberts said too about, not to, denigrate anyone who wrote the document at the time, because we do have to remember this is 16, 17 years old and a lot of the terminology has changed and updated. So no, but I agree with that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, great. Then we'll move on to trail users. Identify potential trailside amenities for trail users, such as staging areas. Oh dear. Washroom, picnic facilities. Oh my God. Campsites.
There are no washrooms.
Oh, I remember.
There's no campsites.
But I remember the campsites discussion. I remember that. Identify interpretive aids for trail users, tourist department. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
I think 5 could be pretty much stricken and in sub points. I'm sorry, I'm just babbling here without even asking.
You know what? Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes it's easier to strike the low-hanging fruit and then go back to the awkward ones. Build on the recommendations of previous initiatives. Like this stuff's way by the wayside.
It is so.
So 4, I think, needs to come out. And if we're going to build on the work of initiatives, it should be. I think that should be included in partnerships or partnership opportunities.
Agreed.
Again, so are we going to take out the provide year-round trail access because we don't for all users, or what would you like to do with that? Is the year-round part relevant?
I'm not finished with number 1 yet. Have we, it's not that I'm not finished. I don't know where we landed with number 1 and the points.
Well, Liz, we didn't. We figured, I think, based on Amanda interjected that number 5 is no longer relevant.
But what about 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Well, we're working from the bottom up now.
Okay.
I know that was pretty fast though.
Now, I think it's important to point out that the promotion of overnight visits, there aren't. You got to remember, this was written for more than just. It was written for the Haliburton Kawartha, the whole thing. There is still opportunity. But promoting overnight visits doesn't, or anything about that kind of thing, belongs in the tourism guiding principles, not in trail users. You got to remember, when this was written, the county didn't even do tourism. The county paid the Chamber of Commerce to do county marketing. We've come a long way since then. And so there can be a far more robust opportunity around tourism opportunities if Amanda can craft some guiding opportunities around that when we get to it.
I think maybe we should pause on all this because I don't want to start striking things out if we're getting too punchy or too excited. But there is an opportunity to promote overnight visits at towns and villages, not necessarily even along the trail, but you could stay at a motel or a hotel in Haliburton. It is important to to identify whether you want to call them staging areas. Like as an example, the town lot in the village of Haliburton is full of snowmobile trailers on, well, all the time in the winter time, because that's their starting point for heading off on the snowmobile trail. Washroom and picnic facilities, they might not be on the trail, but in the town ahead or Haliburton, there's washrooms and, you know, something. So I don't want to just strike all this out. I don't know why it's under trail users. I feel like
That
all
was-
of this is tourism.
That was my point, that I think
Yes, it just,
they just don't belong here. And to be
Yes.
honest, I don't know trail users. None of these things make sense to me for users. Like, I would think users, the idea of users plugs into every other section. So I'm not understanding now that we're actually having a hard look at it, why there's a separate section for users. Because all the things identified, so if some of them live in tourism, others live in design, others live in maintenance, others live in management, others live in operations. So I think all the points listed under trail users, they're valid. They have some validity to them, but they just should live somewhere else.
Except for provide year-round trail access.
Yeah, what do you want to do with that?
I mean, in a way, we do. They're just different groups that use it at different times. But it could be argued that we don't provide year-round trail access.
Well, we provide year-round trail access, just not for everybody.
Exactly.
And we don't provide, we allow.
yeah.
Yeah, go
Go
ahead.
through, just again, because the plan itself is rather meaty and I'm trying to remember, is there a section that talks about promotion tourism opportunities? If there is, then maybe we should wait till our next meeting and bite off some more chunks of that and look at that and see if we're overlapping here. Like I said before, these are important. It's
Yeah.
not that they're not, they just don't make any sense right now in this section.
I agree with you. I think that there are some things that we've agreed simply just are outdated or irrelevant based on the advancements that have been made in certain areas. And there are a number of other things that just simply need to live somewhere else. So again, number 2, highlight area tourist destinations as part of or distinct from the trail. Well, it doesn't belong under trail users. It belongs under tourism.
Yes.
And the other ones, the identify potential trailside amenities. So we've already talked about staging areas in the previous section. We've already talked about parking in the previous section. Washroom and picnic facilities, to me, live under tourism opportunities. Campsites, you know, there was a lot of, I remember the place that is adjacent to the rail trail on the campground, South Wind, East Wind, South Wind, it's for sale.
Oh.
There was one of the owners' plans was this was connected, I believe, to that, was that there was going to be some promotion to say, hey, you can camp and you have access to the rail trail. Now that motel did change hands at least once, if not twice, since then. But there have been opportunities, there have been events that have been held. Some of them have been disputed events because they're motorized, and they've raised a lot of money. And so there was camping. The idea was that you could provide a camping experience, but in partnership with a private operator. That's what
That was under a partnership section.
and or tourism, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, identify interpretive aids. There's your signage. There's website. I mean, the old days it would have been brochures,
Yeah.
maps, that kind of thing. So all of these can live somewhere else. And then I think we need to have a serious look at why there's a section just for trail users, and are we gonna? I feel like we've come far enough that we don't want to start pointing fingers at users and user groups. They should all be partners, shouldn't they?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, so because I'm not hearing any gnashing of teeth or loud protestations that all the items under B, trail users, can be adequately reallocated to a different category where they more appropriately live. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Carol, and that's what I was asking without, I'm flicking through as I'm talking, trying to find, is there a section in the plan that talks about this? And if not, then we got maybe add a whole new section about promoting and tourism and all of that stuff. So we'll review that at our next meeting, I'd say.
And I think that's what we have to do, Andrea, because you got to remember, we didn't have, when this was written, we didn't have the people and departments in place that we have now.
Absolutely.
So we can shift some of these pieces around. Amanda is furiously taking notes. She has
You see.
She has a million ideas. I can feel it emanating off of her.
And the other thing to note in terms of, say, walking and biking, it's exploded since this. Not that everybody always used to walk, don't get me wrong, but I'll say particularly cycling has changed so much since this was written. The type of bicycles people, I didn't even never heard of a fat bike. Like, I live very, very close to the head of the rail trail, and I never used to take my bike on there 16, 17 years ago. And now I do all the time. So we really have a different, it's used so much more than this was even when this was written.
Yeah. And that's what I think, where you made a good point, Andrea, too, is, we don't want to rewrite this. We want to tweak it and
Yes.
make it reflective of things that have been done, things that we haven't yet done, need to continue to work on, and shift some things around.
And the reality of today as opposed to 2004.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick look at partnerships then, because, again, tourism has changed so much. Like number 2, maintain and build. I think that can come out because we're there. I mean, it used to be back in the old days, you had to actively go out and shake hands with folks and build these relationships. It's a very different day, and those relationships are all built, and there's many more of them built than just what's listed here. And it's doing a disservice to the many organizations that we work with who aren't listed here.
Yep.
So can we just say, does number 1 still generally apply?
I don't know about the word identify. I would say something like continue to consider, or as opposed to identify.
Or perhaps the word could be strengthen.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a really good point, because there are relationships there, but some of them can be strengthened.
I was thinking foster, but that's different, but strengthen is.
Foster, you could say foster and strengthen.
Yeah, they both work.
They do.
I was thinking of encourage.
I like that word, foster.
Well, foster and encourage are just.
I feel like you're massaging.
They're very similar. I mean, one's active and one's suggestive, but well, we don't want to say interest, another trail interest to take/share the responsibility of. We don't want to say that. I don't think, because we're not I mean, the county has taken back control of its asset. So really, the point of this is to encourage or foster and strengthen partnerships, collaborations.
I think to achieve the trail's potential, that's what it should all be about, is that we want to have this golden piece of land that we have, this, if you want to call it a linear park, or it's a trail, or it's whatever you want to phrase it, it's a gem. And so we should always be striving to achieve its potential. But
Carol, back to your point, like we could just finish with private landowners, period.
Can we add, Dave, in what Andrea just said, to achieve the trail's full potential?
I like that.
And then partnerships doesn't need to say anything more than that.
No.
Because the nesting dolls is where the refinement will come about what that looks like. And that will fall, partnerships really it's the role of, I think primarily Amanda's department, because those relationships are mostly already in place and they just need to be continued, fostered and strengthened.
So are you saying take out with adjacent municipalities, corporations, and just say foster and strengthen partnerships, collaborations, or strategic alliances to achieve trail potential?
Yeah, because what if you're not one of those people? If you read this, you might think, well, I'm not allowed to play. I think it needs to be as broad-based and hopeful as possible.
Uh,
So Carol, what have you got wrote down now?
I think it says, if I can read my own handwriting, it sounds like people want foster and strengthen partnerships, collaborations, and or strategic alliances to achieve the trail's full potential.
Yep.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Amanda, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I would agree with that. Okay with that.
Like, do you think we need these days to identify who any of these potential collaborators or partnerships are? I mean,
Well, I think by identifying them, we don't want to leave anyone out either. So I think it just the more broad we can be, the better.
Yeah. You run into trouble of missing somebody.
Mhm.
I think it's perfect the way you just read it.
okay. Well, again, we're going to have another look at it, right? So it's going to come back.
Yeah.
So,
And you're saying take out number 2
yeah.
yes,
because number 1 says it all.
yes, exactly. It's just one thing.
You know, in 2004, these were the only groups to collaborate with. Not anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the work Fort's done and what Pamela's done for the Gateway, and like there's more groups and organizations. This doesn't list the ATV Association or anybody else that might be using the trail. So there are other people that we already are working with that are outside of this list. So there's no point in listing people and, as Amanda said, forgetting somebody. So I think that it's 2:39, so that's an hour and a half, and I'm sure Michelle's tired of writing or typing or whatever she's doing there because I can't see her. Is that enough for today, just to sort of shake this out and see where it lands? And then I think what I would ask, and I'm saying it to myself as well as rolling my eyes, is I think we need to each take time, if we haven't very recently, is read that master plan again and see how what we've talked about today agrees with or conflicts with other areas that might need attention. And if you think of something, if you see something in the plan that, well, hey, now this part doesn't make sense, just flip me a note and I'll note it down to put on the next agenda. And I don't know what the timing is. So I've got read master plan again. We need to add, Amanda, sorry, because I know you've got nothing else to do, but we need to have a look at what a tourism and promotional section might look like. So you might have to comb through and pluck out all the things that live in other areas of the plan that now would more appropriately live in that kind of section. Are you okay with that?
Yes, definitely.
And then from the beginning of our conversation, then we're looking for Amanda but probably primarily Craig to just jot down, 3 or 4, maybe 5 guiding principles under operations, maintenance, and management that would feed back into section 7. Are you okay with that, Craig?
Yep, that's good.
And if you have to pluck them out of comb and pluck from the rest of the document, then we would know, we could know what sections they came from as we continue to pick. Does anybody else want to talk about anything else today, keeping in mind that whatever we've done today could be changed next time? Liz?
I'm really tickled with, the way we've landed today. I think we've done, these are some pretty big objectives, and I think we've done a good job on that. I did just want to toss out the idea that, that I think at some point, not in the too far distant future, that we maybe invite the Friends of the Rail Trails consultant to talk to us as an individual, just to make sure that I liked what I heard from her. And I think it might be an idea just to make sure that we're aligned. I would really hate to, we've said that we would accept the document and incorporate it into the work that we're doing. I would hate to find out in, say, March, that we've gone in completely different directions and there's some expectation that we would go back and reinvent things. I don't know what everybody thinks about that, but
yeah, I mean, the little bit that I saw from the video that was provided prior to our council meeting, this is a person who has far more experience than any of us. And so absolutely would be happy, I think, to, you know, to see how far she's gotten and where she's going. You know, what we want to make sure is that it's well understood that there are municipal reasons for doing some of the things we do, which direct some of the language that's in the document. We can't be everything to everybody, and sort of the trail is what the trail is in terms of users for now. But Dave and Andrea, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where she's at in this research that she's doing, but I certainly but I also think that all the county council will want to hear. So I'm not sure, just this, mind you, they can always tune into this format. We haven't set a kind of any sort of schedule either of when we'll meet again, but
yeah, and I've got that under next steps is
okay, sure.
How often, sometimes it's really important to keep the momentum going if you're sort of in the zone of reviewing a bit of a toothy document. You know, do we want to wait a month, or do you want to do every 2 weeks? I don't know what everyone's schedule is. I know that meetings are starting to ramp back up, and I still feel like I'm in a sensory deprivation tank myself. So, what do you want to do? What do you want to do for how often meetings are going to be? This group's going to meet. Dave?
Once a month?
Yeah. For now, for sure.
Yeah. And I also have absolutely no problem bringing the consultant in, Carol, just to answer your question, but I think it's premature. And, you know, I'd like to give us another meeting or two before we consider that.
Yeah, I mean, it's either way. I do, to speak to, I think, Andrea, you'd said that, you know, county council is going to want to hear it. And it would have been my expectation that when that report is done, it would be presented to county council, would be my assumption. Would you agree with that?
oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Liz, as warden, is that what your understanding is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking at the I guess it's the first full week in October, from the 5th to the 9th. Looks fairly open. I don't know what other people's schedules are, but
so today's Thursday and we're all here. Would the 8th of October be amenable to everybody?
That works for me.
Or
Yeah.
rather, would everybody be amenable to October 8th, I think is the proper way to say that.
yep. Same
Because
time.
other than reading, we don't have a whole lot to do. Certainly reading which, you know, I am reading the master plan and whatnot and getting background information. So if staff can have stuff ready, because then the next week is county committee of the whole. So are staff okay to have stuff
Well, that's
ready
why
by then?
we need a month at least, you know,
Yeah.
2 weeks would be too much.
Got 3 nods in here.
Okay, so let's plan for, I'm gonna leave the Zoom screen and I'm gonna go rail trail meeting is 1 p.m. suitable?
Can
Yes.
we have it earlier, or is that a problem?
Well, actually, 1 p.m. works really, really well for me. Sorry, Dave. Like earlier, what do you mean? First thing in the morning?
9 o'clock.
No.
Like, Dave, are you looking at like 10 a.m.?
Sure, 10 would suit me fine, but I'm fine with 1 as well. I just I'll just leave it at that.
think it's good if we try to stick to the hour and a half. That would be, a goal.
I think we did pretty good today, and
We did.
We got a lot done.
And don't forget, we're also going to hear about it. So, so are we 10 or 1? What do you want to do there?
I
The
don't care.
warden would like 1, and I can compromise, and 1's fine.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think Michelle's written one.
Thank you.
I've got one
Well.
on my phone.
Oh, did you? Okay. So we're going to try and stay for like an hour and a half. So
Yeah,
I'll
all
still
right,
put in 2 hours.
let's say maximum 2 hours, maximum.
maximum.
I think
Yeah.
that's enough. Or as Andrea said, you start to get punchy, especially if you following a day like yesterday.
Holy.
Oh yeah, Holy is right.
Okay. So October the 8th at 1 p.m. There's a little bit of homework. Maybe work on that chart that I had provided, and maybe based on today is add some more questions for us to drill down into some of these sections, and if we can find some time to and I mean, I'm willing to say that with all that's been going on in the last couple of weeks, I have not pulled out the master plan and had a look, so I certainly will commit to pulling it out of my file folder and having a more fulsome look based on where it sounds like you guys want to go with this, and how, based on what we did today, sets the stage for how we're going to address this going forward. So I'll read it with that in mind, and hopefully everybody else would do the same.
And thanks, Carol. I really, well done.
Very well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you, Carol, for chairing, and thank you, everybody, staff and the fellow county councilors who are on this. I think, like I said earlier, the trail is used more this year than probably ever, and we have a gem. So I think it's really timely that we're having these discussions, and it's kind of exciting. So.
Well, Andrew, you make a good point, and I asked honestly in some meeting yesterday. Oh, I guess it was library. Liz, you were on. Oh, so were you, Andrea? Asking Aaron, what have we learned through? And I ask our staff that all the time. What have we learned through the pandemic that can change our operational and systemic models? And so we know that people are outdoorsy. Our camping reservations at the water trails are still very high, when this time of year they wouldn't be. Chris Card is anticipating tremendous winter use as more people are up here, and maybe you're going to try snowshoeing and whatnot. So yeah, I think there's that to consider too, is what changes can we expect and plan for. October 8th, 1 p.m. Everybody has a bit of homework. May I have a mover and a sec? Anybody else want to say anything at all about this meeting today? May I have a mover and a seconder for the adjournment? Liz and Dave? All in favor of adjourning at the moment?
Call me Pat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thanks, Pat. Yes, thank you, everybody. And that concludes the second meeting of our very casual roundtable. This is not what council meetings look like. And everybody have a good weekend.
Doesn't
You
have to.
too.
It's ad hoc.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye
Carol.
bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See you folks, just holding tight. According to Mike.